We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Welcome in. Saturday morning, talking a little Phils. It's Drunk on the Fightins, episode 134. Eric, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Doing great. Always feeling a little better after a nice win. So that's we're on the right track here.
Yeah, and listen, the way that that series ended in San Fran, when you the poetic justice that happened in the ninth inning, you could have only thought that it might translate to a win, and then things just fall apart, and you really had an opportunity to get to really dramatically increase that separation between yourself and the Giants in that wild card race. You don't get it. It is what it is, but it is nice to come back. You know, you give up 2 runs early, you know, and I'll be honest, I'm sitting there going, here we go, right? I think I heard Kruk last night say it's the 5th straight game that they've started off in a deficit. I just really want this team to give us a couple wins where we can, like, get 5 runs early and just kind of, like, cruise. But it doesn't say, like, that they're just this team this year that just has to play from behind.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exciting. The game the other night, the one where they lost, I guess it was Wednesday night when they lost the final game to the Giants there. It was one of those things where I feel like for most of the game, the offense was leaving guys on base, striking out, chasing pitches out of the zone. And then, but it's like, I just feel like this team has that ability right now where you don't really feel like they're ever out of it. Especially when you got Bryce Harper on this torrent pace he's on right now. But that was a game where, if you asked me prior to the Giants series, right, I said, okay, 2 out of 3 at this point, just win series, right? 2 out of 3, I would have been happy with. For some reason, though, I was like still bitter because it's like we should have actually had that game. So, it is what it is. Like I said, won the series, got to come out and take care of business against a team that's been struggling with the Cardinals, right? They did that last night, and it's something with Phillies pitchers right now where they love giving up runs in like the 1st and 2nd inning and then settling in, and then the team like doesn't score again. So I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, Sanchez had a rough first last night, but then he settled in and going 6 innings, and the offense just kind of took it away from there. So, that's just really what they have to do. Just keep chipping away at these early leads or early deficits. And keep making it happen. But I think I saw something that almost like half of their wins this season have been like come from behind wins. So I don't know. Maybe this team just likes chasing.
I saw something similar. The dramatic shift in performance from this team, and it seems like that ovation game a couple weeks ago has really been a kind of jumping off point for the rest of the team. It's almost like everybody just kind of took a step back. They realized that if they just play their game, there's not a lot of teams that can compete with them. And it's essentially them and the Braves, I feel like, because I feel like the other teams, like, yes, the Dodgers, kind of the Brewers, but I really feel like at the end of the day, the NL East, whoever comes out of that NL East, whoever goes further, I feel like that's the team that's going to represent the NL in the World Series. And I'm looking at, I like how as impressive as the Braves offense is, I really feel like the matchup is there for the Phillies to be able to take that series.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about this last night. I feel like whenever you have a team that is that dominant in the regular season, right? We saw it back in 2001 with the Mariners. They won like 116 games and couldn't seal the deal. The 11 Phillies, right? They won 102 games, couldn't seal the deal. It's really hard to then, playing that well in the regular season is one thing, but the postseason is just a totally different thing, right? We saw it last year with the Phillies. Realistically, they were not the best team in the National League last year, but they got hot at the right time and they won games that they had to win. So really anything can happen once you get in there. The team that I would actually be, the Brewers don't really scare me. The Dodgers, I think, are missing some pitching right now. So they're a beatable team. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong, but they're beatable, I think. A team I would not want to face if they were able to sneak in, the Cubs. I feel like a hot Cubs team could actually, pose some problems to any team, not just the Phillies, but I think a hot Cubs team coming in, because there's some guys there. It's not like, it's crazy. You look at the lineup. It's not like a real intimidating lineup, but when that team gets on a roll, they get on a roll. So I'm kind of hoping that, they can kind of start losing some games and don't make it in. Because I really would not mind a Phillies Braves matchup in the division series. I think their offense obviously is out of this world, but we showed last year we hit Strider in the playoffs. Max is coming back from that injury. He has not been himself coming back. I think their pitching is gettable. Their starting pitching, their bullpen's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Their lineup is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're going to set the MLB record for home runs in a team home runs in a season. They're just on a torrid pace. I mean, I'm looking at the record right now. They're 83-44. Mm-hmm. Like they're just winning series after series after series. I agree with you with the Cubs. The Cubs are a team that remind me a lot of the Phillies last year.
Yep.
Like a sneaky team gonna, come in on the back end of the playoff race. I don't know. I feel like being the number one wild card team is going to be paramount, because you essentially you get that first series, that whatever team that's going to play, you're going to get those 3 games. You're going to get those games at home. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be paramount to jumping off that playoff race. And listen, we've seen this building in the playoffs.
We've seen it in August, just this week. It's been crazy.
And I was going to say, you had kind of feels of that this week, right? There's a bunch of games where they're packing in 40,000+ on a game in the middle of the week in August, which is normally like a dead time. Normally people are down the shore. Normally people are away. They're getting in those last minute vacations. They're putting 40,000, I want to say all 3 games with the Giants were,
I think so. Yeah.
I'm not going to have to go fact check the attendance, but they had that feel, and the games have that feel, right? The comeback wins, the way that they win the first 2 games against the Giants. And God, what better feeling, right, than the game where they come back and Trey Turner, the ball goes off the glove, just misses the guy and set diving towards second base. You just get this feel like there's that mad all those feels that we had going into the playoffs last year. I'm feeling those feels. I'm getting that feeling like we're about to turn over and really create some separation, right? They're 3 games. They're 3 games north of the next wild card. So these games against some lesser opponents are going to be paramount in
You have
order
to take
to
him.
really create that space.
Yep, no, absolutely. It's one of those things where I think, it was the walk-off on Tuesday night. That, like, if you took the timestamp off of any of the videos that you were circulating on Twitter or anything like that, you could have said that was a playoff game, and I think people could believe it, right? If they didn't watch the game, or if you showed them down the road. That's how loud that place was, and it was so cool just seeing, as guys started getting on base, right? You started seeing the crowd get more and more into it, right? They start standing up, it starts getting loud in there. And Rob Thompson said it. I know he said it after the postseason last year, but he was on the morning show on Wednesday, I guess it was. And he reiterated that, opposing coaches and managers all are just like how other teams feel about playing in this park. So, and the players, I feel like this is a team where I don't really remember a team that have been so involved with the fans, right? I mean, Bryce Harper, some of it was pandering, but how many times does he say, every time he talks about how great Philly is, how great the fans are. Trey Turner obviously saw that side of everything after that ovation, and it really boosted the rest of the team. Thompson talked about it, Castellanos talked about it, Stott talked about it. Like, all these guys now are like, I feel like there's like a genuine connection between this team and the fan base. So if they could go on a run, it could rival last October and be a really, really fun fall.
Oh my God. And you could argue that this team, outside of the Hoskins injury, is just as, if not more talented. The bullpen is deeper. There's more talent on it. Like, I feel like they need to use the rest of the season to really feel out and get everybody in a role in that bullpen, so that they know, right? 7th inning, long man, close, like, define those roles so that when you are in those playoff races, there's no questions. And Rangers out with the injury. So it does shorten what would have been, a 3, not 3, but like that 6-man rotation obviously now goes back to 5. What are your feelings on that? Because I like the idea of the 6-man rotation in order to be able to stretch guys out. Maybe you're using them less. You're using the bullpen guys less because the guys are stretched out. They're going longer. And now you're kind of – what are your feelings on that right now?
So I was okay with using the 6-man rotation for a week or two, a series or two, but eventually it's going to start taxing the bullpen, because even though luckily it worked out that when we were using the 6-man rotation, all of our starters were pitching deep into games, so it did work out because you were able to save your bullpen a little bit. But realistically, there's going to be times where starters are going to falter and they're going to end up coming out by the 5th inning or so, and then you're down a reliever because you have that extra starter. So I think, it's good every now and then to give these guys a break and allow them to have that extra day of rest or two. But eventually it's going to start taxing the pen. Also, I'm pretty sure guys like Wheeler, I don't know how much they like having that much time off in between starts, because he did not look sharp coming out last Sunday against the Nationals in the Little League Classic. Lorenzen had 9 days off in between, not this most recent start, but in between the no-hitter and that start, he got lit up by Washington. And so I think, there's a fine line, right? Like, every now and then giving those guys an extra day, like guys like Nola benefit from that, right? But not everyone does. So I think, again, you kind of got to get a feel from your guys. Like, certain guys are okay with having that extra time and can work on it. Other guys have their routine. If Roy Halladay, if you told him he was getting, 5 or 6 days rest instead of his typical normal rest, he'd be like, no. He was so prepared, and so like he would not let that happen. So for every guy's a little different. And I really think, we're starting to see it with some of these guys like Kimbrel. You can't be mad at the guy. He's had an awesome season, but he didn't have control and kind of blew that game Wednesday in the 10th there. But the bullpen guys were taxed early in the season. The Alvarado injury, luckily the bullpen was able to stay healthy and stay consistent while he was out. The only good thing about that injury, he should be fresh. He pitched a ton in the beginning of the year, but he had almost now a month and a half, 2 months off where he wasn't, in those high leverage situations. So having a fresh Alvarado back is good, but I get nervous about guys like Strahm, Kimbrel, they've been pitching a lot, and I just get worried, that they're going to run out of gas at the wrong time. So I think having that extra defense spot right now is paramount.
Yeah, no, I agree. What are your thoughts? We know that Rob Thompson is not going to move off the Schwarber leadoff, and I want to get your feelings on it, because then I got a stat that I found from Matt Gelb that I want to throw at you.
So I heard Thompson's remarks about Schwarber in the leadoff. You know what? And he said exactly what we said a couple of weeks ago. They're winning. Like, he might have a 187 batting average or whatever it is, but I was actually looking at this before the show. Over the last 7 days, now this isn't a number that's going to blow people out of the water, but for Schwarber it might. Over the last 7 days, he's hitting 286, and his OPS is almost 1,300. So he's doing what he's got to do. His on base percentage over that time is like 333. He's drawing walks, he's getting on base, and I think he's hit 3 home runs in the last week, and some of them have been absolute behemoths. I'm okay with him starting there, because we said this before, and Thompson kind of reiterated it too. He's not going to hit for average. We know that about Kyle Schwarber, right? But he leads off realistically one time a game, right? That first time. Anyone could lead off another inning, right? There's a chance he leads off again in the 4th or the 5th or the 6th. But so could Marsh, so could Turner, so could anyone. I'm okay with leaving him there, because it seems like that if he's going, the team's going. Now you got Turner hitting behind him, and Turner's on a tear, Harper's on a tear. So like, you're 1, 2, 3 right now. I think you don't fix it, if it's not broken.
Yeah. Then listen, it seems like all the conversation around Harper, maybe the power not coming back, and it's back. Like, even the balls even on balls that he's hitting that are outs, like they're just missiles. Like, the ball is coming off his bat so well and so hard now that like that kind of, you can put that conversation to bed. Now, the stat I want to throw you from Matt Gelb, since June 2nd, when the Phillies moved Schwarber back to the leadoff spot, there are 2 hitters in Major League Baseball who have 20-plus home runs and 50 walks.
Him and Ohtani.
Like,
yep.
And and I know, listen, you can you can create stats to dance and kind of get them to fit the scenario, but like, because I know the conversation is like, yes, that is factually accurate. The amount of times that he's striking out, he's going to strike out over 200 times.
Absolutely.
His strikeouts are going to be probably well above his season average. But right now it's working. And I think the scenario that you just mentioned, right? The time that he's coming up to lead off in a game is normally 1, maybe 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
And now the way that they have the lineup stacked with, it's either Marsh or Rojas or some combination of those guys at the back end of the lineup. And those guys, the back end of this lineup, has literally carried this team, because this team, when the front end of that lineup, when all your heavy hitters weren't getting on base, were in dry spells, those were the guys that were getting on base. Those were the guys that were driving in runs. So that's why I'm kind of okay with it, because those guys have been on base when he's coming up in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, in the rest of those innings. Most of the time when he's coming up, those guys have been on base because they're doing a good job.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that's the thing. And it's really because, now the pitchers don't hit, right? If the pitchers still hit, then you basically have, okay, now then you got to think about taking Schwarber out of the leadoff spot, because, the 9 hole is basically an automatic out. And then you don't want to have, 9 and 1, basically being easy strikeouts. But with the DH now, you can kind of, the leadoff spot doesn't hold the same value it used to.
Right.
Obviously, it's important to get on base, but again, if he strikes out in the first at bat of the first inning, no one's on base. It's not a big situation. It is what it is, right? If he hits a leadoff home run, where's the momentum go? It all goes to the Phillies, and so I see why they're doing it. But and again, it's going to be one of those things because people have this idea of a leadoff hitter, right? A leadoff hitter should hit 300. They should steal 30 bases, right? It's just baseball's changed. And again, it would be great if you could have guys doing that still, but it's not as necessary as it once was because now you don't have that automatic out in the 9-hole. And, Schwarber's going to lead off a couple times a game. Now, again, he could be hitting 4th or 5th and still make the last out in the 9th inning by striking out, right? It doesn't matter where he's hitting the lineup, but the only time it's really going to matter is that first at bat of the game, which isn't going to change the complexion of anything.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on the Little League World Series, the classic, taking that Sunday night game and playing it there?
I think it's really cool. It's I think the broadcast is a little much because it's kind of hard to focus on the actual game just because there's so much other stuff going on. But it's awesome for those little leaguers. I mean, think about that the media game that all the players went to on Sunday afternoon, before their game started. Like, how cool is that? I mean, you got Bryce Harper and Reese Hoskins going nuts for you. It's for those guys, it's a really cool experience. It's great for the kids there. For one game, it is what it is. I wouldn't want to play a whole series there. I think there's too many distractions. But for one game, it is what it is. It's cool for the players to interact with the kids. It's cool they get to have some fun. Like Harper got to have his Fanatic bat. Stock got to have his pencil bat. The players get to have some fun. The kids get to have some fun. I think it's a good way to grow the game and showcase the game.
I loved it. I loved the fact that one, that the Phillies are playing there, but two, I love that we also had a team at the Little League World Series that everybody kind of had rallied around the team from media. Love that that scene of those four, there were 4, 5, 6 players all in their jerseys, all literally just sitting with the families from the team from media, and then the kid gets a big hit, and they're doing the Pedro Serrano, I just loved it, man. It was so cool, and it was like they were fans, like they were being kids, and like you said, the unique bats that they were able to use, all the things that make baseball fun, they were able to kind of cram all that stuff into that one game, right? The Bryson Stott wore the spikes, the 2 different spikes. He had the kids from media and the kids from Nevada sign the spikes.
Yep.
The Castellanos, he gifted the entire media team replica bats of the bat that he used. All those little things, like you said, are just great ways to kind of grow the game. And so I wanted to mention something to you, right? So the MLB has a couple of unique games that they play like this, right? So you've got the Field of Dreams game, which I think should be showcased maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
You've got the Little League World Series. They play a game at the College World Series. They play a game in Fort Bragg. And then there's a Paradise Series in Hawaii that I didn't really know about, but
I don't know about that one.
Where is there a place that you can think of that they could play akin to kind of those games?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, they're doing a good job with, trying to do it internationally, right? Getting games in London. They played those games in Mexico City. Mexico City games are hilarious to watch because the altitude there is crazier than Coors Field. So the ball just goes a million miles. I don't know. I mean, I think, like I said, I think they're actually doing a pretty good job. And, attendance this year, I think a lot of it has to do with the pitch clock and games being shorter and stuff like that. But I mean, everything you're seeing, attendance, I think is up 9% or something from last year, which, might not seem like a lot, but that over the course of 30 stadiums, that's a ton of people. We've seen it with Citizens Bank Park, right? We're seeing, sellouts way more frequently. So I think they're doing a good job of growing the game and making it more accessible. And a lot of teams do, maybe, and I think Major League Baseball is actually doing it too. They just announced last week that Rollins and Howard are teaming up with a bunch of other former players and trying to grow the game just around the country. And the Phillies have that RBI where they try to grow it in inner cities and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of different ways to try to do it, and I think they have most of the areas I can think of covered. Did you have anything that you could think of would be kind of cool to do? Because I'm trying to think of other historical baseball type things.
I do have one. So
Go ahead.
so I was just looking it up. That Paradise series was played in 1997.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
So it was a series between the Cardinals and Padres. Now there is one place, right? I feel like they're missing a giant opportunity to play a series at Cooperstown. Now I know that they would have to do some. I know that the field there isn't necessarily like MLB size. It's more akin to that high school Connie Mack. I remember I played. We played a game up there when I was playing like American Legion. Mm-hmm. So it's more akin to the size of that field, but I feel like you're missing a giant opportunity. Like if you played a series there the weekend of Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like that to me would be a cool thing. I also feel like you could play more games like in Iowa, like that Field of Dreams. And I know that they want to keep that like that exclusive, like keep it special. But to me, like if you can take the game to places where it's not traditionally played, you know, because if you look at where the MLB teams are located, there's a lot of empty ground in the middle of the country where you could really grow this game. And it's not like there are not stadiums there, right? There's minor league baseball stadiums
and independent,
all across the country. Like you could very easily go to those places and grow those games. But Cooperstown was one that I was like, you're missing a huge opportunity. And I know that it would take some work, right? You would have to build some stands. You would have to build some, you know, you'd have to expand the field. You'd have to push it out to make it MLB size. But to me, like you've got everything. You've got all the pageantry of the game all right there. Like that Doubleday field right there is like, to me, that would hit just on the right feels of like, and even like you could try to line it up with whoever's getting inducted, right? If it's
get those teams to play,
right. So that was the only play that was the one that I saw that I was like, why do I feel like I'm like, why have I played there and there hasn't been the MLB has not played there?
Yeah, I mean, if logistics work out, it's a great idea. And like I said, during induction weekend would be great because there's already a bunch of people up there. Gives them one extra thing to do, and yeah, it would be a good way to showcase the home of baseball. So that would be a cool one.
All right, listen, we'll play some commercial breaks. We'll come back, talk some MLB, and then we're gonna talk some rule changes.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer gardens in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torin's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Goals are live. DashTourAim.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right, we're back. Before we get into what's going on around Major League Baseball, can we please have the conversation about what is an error and what is a hit? Because it seems like it's something that's going on all over baseball. It seems like everybody that is commenting about baseball knows that it's happening, but Major League Baseball just continues to ignore it. It seems like there's that it's intentioned. It seems like there's a almost like a directive to be able to score more favorably for the hitter than it is just how you would score it traditionally.
Yeah, definitely. This year's been, I mean, I feel like for the last couple of years, it's kind of been trending in that direction, but this year it's, I think, more obvious. I was watching, I think it was the Yankees Nationals the other night, and Lane Thomas and Stone Garrett were both going for a ball, hits Stone Garrett in the glove, falls, the Yankees score. And at that time it was ruled a hit. I never went back to see if it was changed, but I'm like, if that's a hit, then I don't know what an error would be. Now there's some that are close. It's like, okay, you can kind of see why they're doing it, but I don't know. I mean, is it, again, this is all a conspiracy theory I'm just throwing out there, but does the players union want more things to be considered hits? Number one, it pads stats of hitters and makes defenders look better. So I don't know. That's totally, that's just, a deep state conspiracy theory I have there, but so who knows? I don't know. I think for pitchers, it's a bit unfair though, because, now runs that would be considered unearned or being considered earned. So I don't know. It's weird though. And and you're right. Everyone's talking about it. Like it's been written about, it's been talked about on TV shows. And it's just kind of like, okay, whatever.
It's wild. Cause like you would think that like the team would discourage the broadcast from talking about it. Please don't acknowledge it. Please don't talk about it. But they speak very openly and very freely, almost in like a comical, joking way. That they're like, oh, like there was a play. I want to say it was either this past week with Rojas in center field, where he and Schwarber are kind of coming together and hits his glove and drops off. And T-Mac is like jokingly going, I wonder if they're going to give him a hit for it. Right. And then the other play the other night where Marsh and Castellanos are coming and the ball lands completely in between the two of them.
Yep.
The conversation is so comical because it's like, it's odd. Like the plays are very obvious hit or error, but you really don't know the people that are the official MLB scorers that are in the stadium. I got to imagine that they're saying, listen, if you have the opportunity to give this guy a hit, give him a hit, because what are people going to look at the end of the season? They're going to look at stats. They want, this guy played well. We're going to pay. Like, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, Eric. I really feel like at some point there might be a 30 for 30 that they do on this where it really truly comes out that like there was a strong directive, because baseball was a distant fourth in sports for a lot of people. The pace of play, I think, has really, really helped. But I don't think that necessarily has to be on the whether it's a hit or an error. Like it's very strange.
It is, yeah, it is. I don't know, and I don't know if that's going to like, make people start watching the game, like, because I mean, how often does it really happen? It really happens, over the course of all 30 teams, once or twice a week, maybe, where you get like a questionable one. So I don't I don't understand what what the cause is, but if we're the whistleblowers here and Manfred sent some guys after us, maybe we can ask them.
Listen, what are your feelings on because I think the other thing that makes people question the scoring, the umpiring, is the visible strike zone on the broadcast. Because to me, it's accentuating the inaccuracies. Because the way that I think about it is like, if that box were not on the screen, some of those calls I wouldn't question at all. But I see that box, and then I see the ball, and I see it light up, and then I see them cut to the three-dimensional, simulation to show me exactly where it is and exactly where it crosses the line. And I really feel like you're highlighting the inaccuracies. Even though you're showing me how accurate it is, you're highlighting the human error, which only is pushing people to be like, all right, well, why do we need these guys? Like, why do we need the umpires? If we can just have the strike zone and we have a human back there that just says ball or strike, like the pitch comm technology is already in place. So you can't tell me that you couldn't have that communication be as instantaneous as the pitch comm is. Something to me says, like, figure it out, baseball. Like, Major League Baseball, like, whatever you want to do, whatever it is, just put it out there. Put it out for everybody to hear, everybody see, so that we're not trying to come up with conspiracy theories to try to explain why, a guy gets a ball hit to him in the infield, he bobbles it, throws it to first, and the guys and it scored a hit. Yeah,
I mean, again, I don't know if they'll tell us, but with the strike zone thing, I'm with you. I think the having it there, people already hate umpires anyway, right? Because something goes against their teams.
Give us another reason to hate an umpire, right?
Right, and so I don't begrudge the umpires, for making, because some of them are close calls, right? And the only reason anyone would say that that's a bad call is because they can see where the strike zone is on the TV. Other thing is the strike zone, kind of can change, right? Like if you have, if you have Alec Boehm up there, who's 6'3", 6'4", versus Garrett Stubbs, that box is not, because the box doesn't change size when the batter's up there, right? So that throws some things off. Also, and this has kind of been, whether it's fair or not, you get guys like, you get a rookie pitcher, right? They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt on the outside of the plate all the time. Whereas, if you see Garrett Cole, he's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt a little bit more because he's been there, he's earned, his spot in the game and everything. So I don't necessarily know if I don't have a strong opinion either way, but what you're saying about highlighting the inaccuracies is definitely making people way more anti-umpire than it's helping anything. So I don't know. And you're right. There could be something where you have the ump back there, right, and something dings if it's in the strike zone, or does a different thing when it's out of the zone, kind of like they do with the pitch comm. Hot take about pitch comm: I hate the pitch comm. Absolutely hate it. I think. Listen,
as someone who caught all the way through college, I hate it. I hate everything about it. It takes
No, go ahead.
It takes that whole element out of the game. And listen, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be like old man on my porch yelling at the kids in my lawn, but like there's something about that human communication that I think that's an element of the game that you now took out completely. And I think that has a lot to do with what happened with the Astros, with the sign stealing, than it does with anything. Because now, unless you're intercepting that signal, there's really not a way to do that based on the fact that like they used to touch different parts of their face or their shoulders or their hat or whatever that signal was. And that human element of being able to have somebody on your team that was their job to try to figure out what that sequence was, I don't like it. I think you're implementing a piece of technology into the game that really didn't need to be there.
Right. And I think part of the whole thing here was to, implementing the pitch clock was to speed up the game. How many times do you see pitchers and catchers conveniently have broken pitch comms when they're about to get, a pitch clock violation? And you're right. I mean, it takes away that I get they're doing it to try to avoid the sign stealing thing. But to me, if you have a runner on second base and he's able to pick up what you're doing, that's on you. Figure it out. Like the whole Astros thing and using technology, that's absolutely like that's cheating. That's that. But if you're not trying, like you're looking for advantages, right? Like if a pitcher's tipping pitches, hit it because he's got to learn not to do that. If you're playing football, right, the defense is going to obviously try to guess what type of play the offense is doing, and they're going to look for things, right? They're going to watch film. You could do the same thing in baseball and say, okay, this guy does this before he drops a curveball, right? This guy does this before he throws a fastball, or pick up the signs. It's part of the game. And, I think to me, PitchCom, all it does is it slows things down because there's constantly problems with it. I mean, there's no possible way that every time this happens, there's a problem with it, right? I mean, there's no way Major League Baseball would invest in technology that breaks 3 times a game. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's true.
So like, to me, I think it's adding a different element of cheating now because now you're skirting the pitch clock. So I don't know. To me, it's stupid. I hate it.
Well, and listen, you remember the game with the Marlins earlier this year with Kimbrel, right? Where he assumed and was probably a right assumption that the Marlins are stealing, like they're stealing signs because you have the guy that was on second, rubbing his head if it was a fastball, rubbing his chest if it was a curveball, to the point where Kimbrel takes the intentional balk to get that to move that runner off of that base. Like, that to me is traditional baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's been part of the game for how long?
Right. You're looking for those in those sequences, or you're looking for those inaccuracies, which for me, I feel like are part of the game. You take the pitch com and it sort of pseudo takes that element out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're not going to get rid of it, because
no.
The players probably like it because there's certain benefits to it. But just from like a fan perspective, if I have to see one more reliever who can't get the pitch in 15 seconds, take his hat off and act like something's wrong there, it makes me scream because I'm like, baseball. The whole thing you're trying to do here is speed up the game, and now you're basically adding another 15 seconds so they can run out a second and third pitch com to this guy. So I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I love it. But listen, around Major League Baseball, what are you seeing kind of leading into we're kind of going into September, into the last month of the regular season? What are you seeing? What are you looking forward to around Major League Baseball?
Couple things. One thing I was looking forward to was the Angels coming to Philly and possibly seeing Ohtani pitch. That's not going to happen now. I'm sure we'll talk about Ohtani in a minute. But one thing that's really interesting to look at right now is the AL West. The Rangers were like leading the division since like April 12th. Then you got the Astros obviously in the mix, but the Mariners are on an 8-game winning streak, and they just tied the Rangers for the division lead. And I think if I remember seeing the schedule correctly, all 3 of those teams play each other in the last like 2 weeks of the season. Yeah. So schedule makers, great job making that happen, because that's going to be some really intriguing baseball if this keeps up. So I never really thought I'd be sitting here talking about the AL West instead of like the AL East, but it should be an interesting division showdown there, because there's a lot of divisions in baseball where I feel like there's the winner of the division is already decided, right? The NL East, NL West, AL Central. I mean, listen, you've got in the NL Central, right? The
the Twins have a 6-game lead on the Indians, on the
And everyone in that division
Guardians.
just stinks.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
stinks.
Minnesota is leading that division with 67 wins.
Yeah.
But literally, you took the topic right out of my mouth, right? You've got 3 teams in the AL West that are sitting with 72 wins that are tied. Yeah, they're essentially all tied for the lead. It's just wild that West. But the team that surprises me most that I did not see coming at all is the Orioles. It's really, really good for Major League Baseball to have the Orioles be relevant again. Because that stadium obviously that stadium was the stadium that kicked off that style of stadium around Major League Baseball. And that city gets behind their team. And it's really nice that they were able to do it very generically. They did it. They build it through their farm system. They don't sign a ton of high price. Like they do their work in terms of drafting and then developing players. I just love everything about Baltimore. And listen, there is something nice about having both New York teams sitting in last place. Even if the Yankees have 62 wins, it is really nice that the Yankees and Mets are both sitting in last place.
Yeah, I agree. The Orioles are crazy because they're like an accelerated rebuild where I don't think they're actually planning on being this good yet this year.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and they're like they have such a fun team to watch. Also, they have the number 1 ranked farm system still in baseball. So like they're going to be good for an extended period of time, barring injuries or terrible player development or something like that. But obviously they have a good player development system. So yeah, it's been really fun to watch them. I've watched quite a few of their games. The Yankees being in last is objectively hilarious for everyone except for Yankees fans, because I don't think there's a fan base in baseball that actually likes the Yankees or their fans, right? Like there's teams I just don't care about, right? Like Kansas City Royals. Okay, if they're in last, I can't feel bad for them, right?
Right. Doesn't really matter.
Bad for the Yankees. And I saw some. I really wish they ended up losing 2-3 to Washington, but they did it in the wrong order for me, because if they would have lost, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday night. I think it was Wednesday night. If they would have lost that game, it would have been 10 in a row. They have not lost 10 in a row since the Woodrow Wilson administration. So that would have been, I was really, really, really hoping they did it. They lost 9 in a row. And I think the last time they did it was like 1982, but there's a drastic difference between, 1982 and World War I. So it was, I was really hoping for that. The Mets being in last place is also, also funny, but
that's bittersweet. Considering where the new owner, tons of money, spend a lot of money. The fact that they sold as much as they sold at that trade deadline, good God. Like that, that one is like the fact that the Nationals have leapfrogged them. It feels really good.
It does. There's 2 things. One, it's like, it is kind of fun having that Phillies Mets rivalry, where it's like you want to hate them. I still do, but it's more fun to hate them when you're like kind of going back and forth there. Like just think like 07, 08, like those runs were really fun. And that's really where I developed a hatred for the Mets that actually might run deeper than Dallas. But the thing about the Mets is that I think I read somewhere, if they finish, last, obviously they're going to be higher up. They might finish in the top 10, I think, for next year's draft. And if they do that, I don't think there's a penalty, or there's not as big a penalty for the luxury tax. If they finish outside of that, because of how much money they spent, they would have to lose 10 pick spots. So like, I think if it was like, if they drafted like 12, right, they would move back to 22. So what would be even more funny is if they don't finish in last, they have a complete wasted season, spent $400 million or whatever on their payroll, and then get penalized for being terrible again at the end of the season because they spent so much money. So that's really what I'm hoping. So I'm actually hoping they go on a little hot streak and, kind of finish in like that middle of the pack in baseball. So that way they lose draft picks and it doesn't just affect them this year. It affects them, the next couple of years. So if we're rooting really against the Mets, that's how we want to root.
I love that. That's some deep digging knowledge right there. I love that. Also, if you look like the end of the season, right, they're going to end the season. The last 3 series that they're going to play are going to be against the Mets, the Pirates, and the Mets. So it's like if there's any wiggle room that they're going to need to, kind of stack some wins, they're going to have the opportunity against, 2 franchises that essentially sold whatever they could at the trade deadline. And really, those teams have not been playing for anything really all season long.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one of those things where it's like those on paper should be easy series. I feel like division series are always tough though. So the Mets, while they don't have any pitching, I get nervous having to rely on that last series in New York, because I feel like the Mets, there's obviously that rivalry with the Phillies, right? They're going to try to ruin the Phillies season. And now last year we went out to Pittsburgh. Oh, actually, no, this is when Pittsburgh comes to us this time. Mm-hmm. But I feel like for some reason, I know we swept them in Pittsburgh last year. I don't remember what we did at home against them last year. But I feel like we always kind of struggle against Pittsburgh, where like it should be a sweep or an easy series win. And we usually get 1 or maybe 2. But I feel like, this Pittsburgh team is just they started out the year better than I think people expected. But that was just starting out the year hot. They aren't really that good of a team. But it is nice to kind of have that where on paper you should win 6 out of those 9 games, right? So, but you never know what's going to happen. But it is nice. So I know we do have one more Braves series coming up.
So that series,
one, right?
So September 11th, they start a 4-game stretch with the Braves at home, and then they go at St. Louis, and then they play 3 in Atlanta.
So 7 in against the Braves in September. So that it's a good test. See what we measure up against, how we measure up against them there.
And that's what I thought. Like you're going to have some games in September that are going to be meaningful.
Real meaningful.
I think. And here's the other thing I thought about, Eric, is like the Braves are so far running away with this that they're going to have a really long stretch where they're not playing a ton of meaningful games, and then at the end of the season, because they're going to have that number 1 seed, they're going to have they're going to have almost a week off before they play that first playoff game. Mm-hmm. And if there's anything that I've learned about Major League Baseball and the playoffs, the last thing you need when you're playing well is time off.
Yep.
Because we saw what happened with the Braves last year, right? They had all that time off, and they come into Philadelphia, and the Phillies – had just ripped off the series with the Cardinals. They couldn't have come in hotter, and it was literally just like clockwork. So like those series to start September at Milwaukee, at San Diego, are going to be really important series, right? Really good tests on the road. Teams that are, Milwaukee's a playoff team. San Diego has the talent to be a playoff team, but is kind of waffling back and forth on whether or not they want to be. But they're going to have some tests in September where I feel like the Braves are they're going to be trying to play that we're going to play good enough to set up our rotation, keep our guys hot, get guys rest. That inconsistency and that time off, I feel like is something that a team like the Phillies, if they're playing through that time, could really capitalize on.
Right. When teams come in hot to the playoffs, right, that's basically how you make a deep run like the Phillies did last year. I even 08, right? I mean, you look at some of those other teams in the playoffs. That later, 09, 10, 11, the Phillies were probably the best team in the NL some of those years. I don't think 08, the year they actually won it, I don't think they were actually the best team. Like, look, if you look at the rotation that year, it's crazy that they won a World Series with that rotation, right? Cole Hamels was your 1. You had Brett Myers as your 2. Jamie Moyer is your 3. Jamie Moyer was like already like 45 or 46 years old at that point. So it's like it's all about coming in hot, right? And I really think killing momentum like that is a big deal. Even like last year, we saw none of the teams that had that time off really did well. And I know from a strategic standpoint, the less games you play, the better chance you have, right? You got to win less games to make it to the World Series. So from a strategic standpoint, obviously you're not going to sit there and blow games to try to, get into the wild card series. But And there's benefits to it too, right? If your guys anyone who's banged up gets a couple extra days off, your bullpen gets rested. So there's benefits to it. But yeah, I mean, if you're not the best team going into the playoffs, or if you develop any rust during that extended time off there, it could definitely put a damper on your playoff potential, I think.
And listen, you have look no further than what I would probably argue is probably one of the best Phillies teams, right? That team that loses that game 5 to the Cardinals at home. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals couldn't have come in hotter, right? And you just caught Chris Carpenter on a day where he was just electric and just went toe to toe. There were so many out. You put yourself in that position where you needed something electric to happen, and it just couldn't happen for that game.
It just didn't. And
that's a team I would probably argue probably was their best team out of that whole stretch. If you look at that rotation, that rotation was like just bullet after bullet after bullet. And that team, I feel like if that team had won that series, I feel like they could have won. That team probably was good enough to go on and win a World Series.
Oh, they were so good. Actually, a guy, Tim Kelly, I think from Phillies Nation, interviewed Hunter Pence because he was with the Giants broadcast booth.
Oh, right.
I was reading his article about that. Yes, he talked to Hunter Pence about that team. And, Pence was only here. He got traded at the trade deadline. But Pence was saying he's like I am devastated basically that we lost that. Like, we were such a good team. It was the best team I was ever on. And you look at that rotation. Even though the lineup was just so deep. But yeah, they just they couldn't get anything going that game. And Halladay gives up 1 run, goes 8 innings. Carpenter goes 9 innings, giving up 0. It's like how much more frustrating can it be when you have a lineup with that potential? But that just shows it's not always the best team that gets it. So there's always just get in, and anything can happen.
I remember just being crushed. I remember that that
was also when Howard blew out his Achilles, right?
Was that game?
I think it was that game against the Card. I think it was. Was it?
God,
it was equally. It was even more so devastating.
And that was the beginning of the end for him.
That was basically I mean he never really fully recovered from that. But yeah, I just remember watching that one, and that was a crushing loss. But yeah, I think that's why if we get the if the Braves get in, they're a hot team, and obviously probably the best team in baseball right now.
Yeah,
but there is that chance, like especially we saw what happened when they came to Philly last year. We ended up winning, killing them here. So
yeah,
never know.
Never know. Listen, let's roll into final thoughts. What do you got?
Just keep winning series. Take 2. Or if we have to split any 4-game series, just you can't and beat the teams you have to beat. Take care of business. It's always great to beat teams that are better than you, but look what the Phillies did last year, right? In August and September, they finally beat teams they had to beat. It got them in the playoffs. And, we had one of the most fun falls that we've had in, a decade or so. So, and this team, I think, is more fun, definitely more talented. So I just really, and you see they added a new song to the playlist. Alex Coffey talked to Garrett Stubbs about it. Believe by Cher. Believe by Cher.
Ooh.
And I'm telling you, so
okay.
I can't tell you the last time I don't think I've actually ever actively sought out to listen to that song. But after reading, I'm like, let's, because he's like, the song kicks ass. It's a banger. So I'm going back and listening to it. And I'm like,
I love that.
You know what? I'm like, actually, I never really would have thought that, but I just picture, Stubbs in those, the Phillies overalls and, Schwarber like chugging a beer and Marsh just acting like a lunatic and just hearing Believe blasting in the background. And I just have visions of an awesome, awesome October.
I love it. Listen, I couldn't have said it any better, man. That's like, you feel the feels of this team, right? And I love the way that this team kind of relies on each other. And to see the camaraderie every time there's someone that's getting a big hit or big, right? It's the thing, Kylie put out the picture of Trey Turner right before the ovation where he looks just like he's carrying the weight of the world. And then the side by side, the picture of him post game after he gets the game winning hit, and just the facial feature, just looking at him, he just looks like the weight of the world is just kind of lifted off him. And I really think like that's has everything to do with this fan base, with this team, how they're coming together, how they play for each other. And I really I'm with you. I had no idea about the song, but I'm about to, as soon as we drop off, I'm going to go add that to the playlist and just really just try to ride the momentum just like we did last year, right? We rode that Phillies momentum right into the Eagles when they were, about to be 8-0.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these two teams are really converging on this like battle for battle. Who can outdo each other? And as crushing as it was to have both of them fall short last year, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It really, I would rather be in this position than, and I'm sure there are fans all over Major League Baseball. You would rather be in the position that we were in last year, having the opportunity to win the World Series versus a team like the A's or a team like the Royals, like those teams that are just floundering. Mm-hmm. Teams are trying to move. I just love this city. I love how this team gets behind it. So, go Phils. Listen, I'm Don. That's Eric. We were drunk on the Fightins today. We're go check out the stuff on the link tree. Go check out the old episodes. We got a lot of cool stuff coming out. I'm gonna be on tomorrow with Mark talking a little Phillies, little Flyers. Go check out the Fired Up podcast network, the shows that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Go Phils.
Go Phils.
The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008